Hey there. Hello everybody, you are tuned into Normal. My name is Neo.
And my name is Lebo. Today we're actually speaking about really taking it back to the basics. If you are a beginner, Neo has some sweet news for you.
If you are a beginner and you're asking yourself, how do I start? Who can I trust? And how can I go about things? I know that with all this property jargon, with all this property numbers, formulas, it can get overwhelming, so you need to watch until the end of the video. We have something special just for you. I mean, the content is relevant. The content is speaking to you directly because these are the questions that we are getting as we're conversing with property investors on a daily basis. So we're like, how about we address topics like this so that we add massive value towards where you are right now.
So if you haven't actually subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe now, right? Please make sure that you subscribe now. So now, without wasting any more time, let's go deeper into content. Now, what's that first point that you would actually like to highlight to someone that's actually watching right now, especially as a beginner?
When it comes to how to start investing, and not only in South Africa, but how to start investing in property as a whole, it's very important that you actually align all these three pillars. So the first pillar is having a set goal towards what would you really like to achieve when it comes to property investing. Secondly is having a set strategy. So now the set strategy will be like, this is the goal, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and then this is the strategy of how am I practically going to get to that goal. And then finally is the type of investment that we are looking into when it comes to property investing. When I'm saying the investment, I'm talking to the cash flow that we're getting from that property. Is it aligned with the strategy? Is it aligned with the goal? Because it does not make sense having a property whereby I'm cash flowing negative and then my goal is to become a millionaire through property investing in the next year or two. So I need to make sure that all of these three pillars are aligned.
Most definitely. So now, especially looking at your strategy, right? We are aware, right, that there are more than one strategies towards property investing, right? So now someone will tell you that they are into rental and another person will tell you that they are into flip or back to back or wholesaling, depending on what strategy you would actually like to actually implement, right? So now looking at property investing, the first thing that you need to establish is that what type of strategy will actually best suit you and your current situation. So now say for instance, if you have a full-time job, you love this job of yours and you do not want to change it for anything. However, you still want to invest in property. So now the most ideal investment strategy for you would be your rental, because now you don't have a lot of time to actually be running around and getting a project manager, making sure that everybody is on site. You don't have time to do that. And also looking at the flip side, if you are actually working, but now your job isn't really that intense in terms of how long you need to be on site, you can also utilize the flip strategy. So now you need to actually look at how or which is the best strategy that's actually going to fit like a glove in your property investment journey.
Looking into the first one, why I'd actually say that it's not really that shallow, it's quite deep. So why am I saying that is that through our engagements with property investors, I've seen that we all have different strategies. So let me actually, even goals, we all have different strategies and goals. So let's go back to the goals and say, what are we referring to when we speak about property goals? So when I'm looking at my property goal and Lebo's property goal is that we are looking at using equity to grow our property portfolio. Now, when we sit down with somebody who's like, you know what, I just want to park my money in an investment that's better than my current investment. So they are more playing the passive role, and it makes sense in terms of I just want to park my money and get appreciation from it. So that's where you get to understand the dynamics of the game, that people have different goals. Somebody's like aggressive to the point whereby I need to pay with this property, I need to be paying my children's school fees. Then you get to understand that we all have different goals, and it's very important to actually understand that, okay, with this goal set, is a property that I'm looking at going to hit the intentional goal that I put? Because let's go back to that same example that I made earlier on. If I'm running at a cash flow negative and my intention was to buy properties so that I can pay off my children's school fees at the end of next year or the end of year 2, and I know that I'm cash flowing negative, that's not aligned. So I can actually take a decision from the onset that I am not buying this property because it is not aligned with the goal that I set.
Most definitely. And then the second point that we actually wanted to talk about, you know me, I'm a numbers person, right? So numbers don't lie. So when you're looking at numbers, what we need to actually start to consider is that if I'm going to be investing 1 million, how hard is my money going to be working for me on that particular property? I mean, the term already says it itself that this is property investing. So now there's the investment part of the property that we need to also consider. So now looking at that particular point, how do I invest my money that I currently have right now using also my credit to fast track my investment purposes? So what do I mean? Say for instance, you're investing 1 million and from this 1 million, you're only getting 10% from a particular property. When you're looking at this particular investment and you comparing it to other investments that you can actually find in financial institutions, you can already start determining if this was a good investment. So now say for instance, if your financial institution right now is actually offering you 10% and you are renting out this property and it also gives you a return on investment of 10%. Now that's going to be a problem because now when you're looking at the financial institution, it's a guaranteed 10%. Right? So now it's not going to happen that you might get 9.5%. But now looking at property investing, you are now taking a bigger risk because you bought the property. It might happen that the tenant doesn't actually pay for that particular month. That's going to impact your ROI. So now looking at that particular investment that we're actually speaking about, if my financial institution is actually going to be saying that I'll give you 10%, I need to make sure that when I'm investing in property, I'm actually going to be getting a 15% at least at minimum.
It clearly goes without saying that you can't look at numbers without looking at risk management. So when we are saying risk management, we're speaking about the worst case scenario. You know, looking at property investing, we're always thinking about getting the keys, getting the tenant, getting the income, and that's actually nice. We're not thinking about those months whereby it's rainy months and the tenant has left. We're not thinking about the keys are bursting and messing up the whole house.
Or the tree falling onto the roof and now you need to fix the whole roof because you didn't pay that insurance last month.
We're not thinking there. So it's actually very important to prepare yourself before you're actually in that situation. So that's when we are talking about risk management by applying the worst case scenario in your numbers. So maybe you actually factor into 2 months. If you are actually going to go 2 months without getting rent, how will that affect you in your journey? I remember that when we were running numbers, that this actually hits affordability. One of the situations that we're in, we looked at is that, okay, let's look at this property. When we went to the bank, when we went to the bond originator, they said, awesome, everything is well. And then only to find out that when we were looking at the numbers, if we had to actually go vacant for 4 months, we were not going to be able to afford this house. And what was going to happen is that the bank could have easily repossessed that house. So you don't want to find yourself in that situation whereby you didn't look at the numbers in the worst case scenario. You really want to look at the numbers, look at it at worst case scenario, because the worst thing is that imagine property investing is such a beautiful concept. We're all thinking of getting keys, getting the tenants and being called a landlord. However, now, if you are going to put yourself in a deal that's going to kick you out to a point whereby even recovering will be a mess, it will actually affect your credit score. You don't want to find yourself in that deal.
And you turning into a distressed seller. You don't want to find yourself in that situation.
You really don't. So it's very important to actually understand what are we saying when we're referring to risk management and also working your numbers on the worst case scenario. I mean, you also look at Airbnb. The concept of Airbnb, when we're speaking about it, people are like, you know what, I'll be charging 1.9 thousand rands a day. How does that sound? Not considering that there will be days whereby it will be vacant. So now if you're a property investor, before even buying the apartment itself, and you're already multiplying the income, the daily income by 30, whereby you're not considering even months that are actually going to be charged less, you're already positioning yourself in a situation that will be sour. So in order to avoid that, make sure that you actually analyze the numbers, especially using the worst case scenario.
Okay, so now give us the third point. What is that third point that you'd like to actually highlight?
for me, especially as a beginner on how to start, is that you need to make sure that you're always attending networking seminars like Knowing Wealth does. So I think we're going to post something that's quite cool here. Should be here. You should be here. So, in a nutshell, what we're saying is that once you start attending such seminars, you are able to actually capitalize from experts. Man, how great does that sound? I mean, the nice thing about being a property investor is that, especially a property investor who invested in themselves, you get to understand that, you know what, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to draft a lease agreement. There's somebody who I can ask nicely to do that, and I know for sure that if anything does actually happen that's bad, I can easily go back and this person will protect me. If I know that I surrounded myself with a power team, if I know that I'm about to apply for a house and I want the best interest rate, I know who I can refer to. If I know that maybe let's just say that I have a problem with my electricity, the electricity wiring is not well, I know who to refer to. Especially as a beginner, you don't want to find yourself in a situation whereby you've got trust issues. You don't want to find yourself in that situation whereby you've got trust issues and you're like, who can I call or who can I trust? You want to make sure that your property journey is that you're surrounded by people who you can trust, and if anything does go bad, or before even anything goes bad, you know who to rely on in rainy days, because all we do as property investors are running numbers and signing offer to purchases.
I mean, I've heard this somewhere, right, where someone is saying that something that you want is known, or someone has that particular thing. So now what does it mean? If I need money or I need a job, there's someone out there that has that particular thing. So now if I'm always trapped in my house, chances are I'm not going to be able to get that particular thing. So now with the networking seminars and you wanting to be an aspiring property investor, you might actually bump into someone that has what you need. So say for instance, if what you need is someone that will actually work on your credit, you might go to a property seminar whereby you would actually meet someone that might be able to help you out in that particular situation. So now looking at attending your property seminars, that for me is one of the biggest things that I would actually recommend, because now that also opens up your mind that, I mean, there are some people that are actually doing it out there. So what stops me from doing that? So now the last point that I would actually like to speak about is that have a coach by your side, right? Have someone that knows how to invest in property. Have someone that actually can guide you in terms of which property to actually buy and which property not to buy. Because the most important skill that is there for property investors, it's not me being able to see if the property is distressed. It's not me being able to actually calculate how much am I going to need for that particular house. My job is to be able to determine if this property is the right property to invest in or not. So now say for instance, if you have a contractor or if you are a contractor and you know how much it's actually going to cost to rebuild this particular property, if you do not know how to actually get to your ROI or don't know how to actually run your numbers, you're going to have a problem in terms of moving from one property to the next, because you might be able to run the numbers for renovating the whole property, but now are you able to actually consider the costs that actually come with that particular property? Are you able to forecast how much are you actually going to be getting on that particular property? Are you able to check your ROI? I mean, that's a lot of jargon. I'm sure I lost you a bit, right? So just to come back, make sure that you have a coach by your side that will actually teach you all of this jargon, that will also be able to actually put you in front of people that might help you in your property journey.
Unfortunately, if you are actually dismissed by all of this jargon, or if you are like, where do I start, guys? I still don't know where to start. What you can do is actually hit the link below on Calendly, and we're going to put it on the description. Then you can just set up a Zoom meeting just like that by selecting a date and time, and then it's all set just like that. We can have a conversation about how to start, because I know for sure that all our journeys are different when it comes to property investing. There's no one shoe fits all. I've learned that there's no one shoe fits all when it comes to property investing, especially when it comes to credit or even the cash side or even the buying side. I mean, if you're buying in community of property, it's you and your wife. if you are buying as brothers, or if you're buying as sisters, or you only find out that we're buying the properties as a family, or even colleagues. So these situations are so many, and you'd actually want to understand that how do I start and how does my situation affect the goal that I want to drive it to, aligning it with the strategy and ultimately the specific property that we're speaking to that will ultimately tie everything together.
So now our offer to you is that click on the calendar link. Let's set up a Zoom meeting. Let's have a talk in terms of how can we actually help you in your property journey.
Invest like a pro with no wealth.
Remember, subscribe. Cheers.